If you ever gave a big dinner party, you know how difficult it is in making preparations, especially if the guests are important in your life. The house has to be cleaned and in order. The menu has to be planned well in advance. Food and beverages must be purchased. Then food preparation. Many good hosts know how to make certain dishes beforehand. The table is set and all is in readiness well before the guests arrive. This is all done so that the hosts could spend time with their guests. It takes a lot of coordination and advanced planning, along with many hands in the family helping out to have a successful dinner party. However, not all hosts are good at the task of giving a dinner party. I remember several years ago, a young friend of mine invited me over his house for his dinner. I arrived at the appointed time, and I found out nothing's in the oven, nothing's on the stove, no table is set. And I said to my young friend, "What are we going to have for dinner?" And he said to me, "Oh, I was going to go shopping now." I said, "Shopping now? We'll eat at midnight." I said, "What do you have in the cupboard?" And I found a box of pasta. "What do you have in the refrigerator?" "A few vegetables." I said, "That's enough. I'll make pasta primavera." He didn't even have a bottle of wine. Fortunately, I had one in the car. I think that Martha in today's gospel was very much like my young friend. Not only is she disorganized and not having the dinner party planned for Jesus and his friends, but she is upset that her sister Mary is not helping. Jesus used the occasion to put forth an important teaching on hospitality. Hospitality is not only about doing, but it's about listening. And I learned this from my father, unbeknown to him. Towards the end of his life, he remained in his little South Philadelphia row house, and I would go occasionally to help with the chores. Not that he wanted me to do that, but I felt the need to do it. So I remember one day I'm running around doing the chores in the little house, and he said to me, "Son, why are you doing all this?" And he said to me, I said, "Pop, I'm doing it for you." He said, "Oh no, you're doing it for yourself. You want to do something for me?" I said, "Sure, Pop, what do you want?" He said, "Come, sit down, pour yourself a drink, and talk to me." Wow, I stopped in my own footsteps. I learned to stop what I was doing and sit down and talk to my father. And of course, I did pour myself a drink. Today's readings invite us to reflect deeply on hospitality, not simple as a social courtesy, but as a profound Christian calling, a sacred way of life. Hospitality is the universal language of charity. I'm going to say that again. Hospitality is universal language of charity. Our first reading from Genesis. Abraham welcomes 3 strangers. He runs to greet them, bows low, prepares food, and serves them personally. He does not know that these are divine messengers, yet he opens his home and his heart. The ancient act of hospitality becomes a moment of divine encounter. It reminds us that God often comes to us disguised as a stranger. In the gospel, We see Jesus receiving the hospitality of his close friends, Martha and Mary. We see Martha busy with the task of hospitality, while Mary sits listening. Jesus teaches us that hospitality is not only feeding guests, but also being present to them, listening and responding to the deeper needs of the person before us. Together, my friends, these readings paint a fuller picture of Christian hospitality. It is more than hosting friends for a pleasant meal. True hospitality is encountering Christ in others, especially the poor, the stranger, the outcast, and the vulnerable. We're all aware of the life of Mother Teresa of Calcutta. How, as a young girl in Albania, she saw the example of her mother opening her home to the poor and offering hospitality. After becoming a sister of Loretta and teaching for 20 years in India, at the age of 40, she experiences another call to serve the poorest of the poor. She once explained that Christ's words of, "I thirst," took on a new meaning for her, representing the spiritual and physical hunger of the poor and abandoned. Her inspiration was nourished by prayer, the Eucharist, and a profound sense of an identification with Christ in the suffering poor. She believed that every person bore the image of God and deserves dignity, love, and care, regardless of the caste, religion, or background. The question that our readings pose to us today is, what is my attitude toward those outside my familiar circle? Do I see Christ in the most vulnerable in our society? Am I open to my understanding of Christian hospitality? How does the life of Mother Teresa inspire me? And finally, how do I integrate my faith, the Scriptures, with our present concern for migrants and refugees? A big question in our world and in our country today. Christian hospitality calls us to be like Abraham, to have eyes to see, to be attentive to the strangers in our midst, not just people in our social circles, but the strangers God sends into our path. The call of hospitality is a real ministry. Hospitality has been one of the prime charisms of the Norbertine order. Many of our congregation have taken this to heart. In Isaiah 58 and the various outreach programs that we sponsor here at the Abbey. Lastly, we must remember that Christian hospitality is not convenient and not reciprocal. Let me say that again. It's not convenient and not reciprocal. It is sacrificial. I learned this when I was stationed in South Philadelphia in parishes, and I would encounter people would come to the rectory pretty broken. Some were perhaps involved with addiction. And then I learned some could not even say thank you for the little that you gave to them. And I wondered why. They were so broken. that they didn't even have the capacity to be grateful. We shouldn't be looking for payback. What we do as Christians for the honor and glory in God. Like St. Paul in the second reading, we may have to suffer a little, give up time, comfort, and resources, but in doing so, we reveal the mystery of Christ to the world. I was a stranger, and you welcome me in Christ's message to all of us this morning. As we now come around the Lord's table, let us welcome not just our friends, but the forgotten. Let us serve not just food, but compassion. Let us not just host, but be disciples of Christ who said, I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. Let that be our thought and prayer this day, in Jesus' name.